often, and depending on the age and stage of the child and their maturity, often it's not saying the word hate as we might perceive it as adults. It's really saying, I don't know how to communicate this. I am very frustrated. I'm angry. I didn't get what I wanted, and I don't have the vocabulary to communicate that. And so I'm going to say something that I can control. I sort of understand it. So therefore, I hate you. And then we have to put it through the filter of, really, they're saying, I love you, I need you, but I don't know how to say that because you're really ticking me off right now.
How do you, and I absolutely hear what you're saying. How do you also then address at the same time the power of words and, it's maybe not the intention, but the words still hold a lot of power. How do
Yeah.
you balance that teaching with the intention?
That's a good point, Joe. And everything's an opportunity for teaching. And I think we've said that time and time again over the last 12 months, how important it is to watch our words. We need to role model ourselves as the adults. But one of the things that if you hear those words is not to do your first instinct and say, how dare you say that, or become very punitive. What you want to teach them is that there are healthier ways to communicate their frustration and anger. So you might say something like, instead of going for your first instinct, how annoyed you are or how wrong that is, you say, look, obviously you're very angry at the moment. I love you. I care for you. Why don't we have some time out from each other and let's come back to talk about this when you're settled down and I've settled down. So you're role modeling healthy thing, but you can actually then address the situation. You know what? You said those words, I hate you. Do you realize how much that hurts me? How disappointed, how discouraging that is? And then express how it makes you feel. And then you're teaching them that words do really matter. So it's a really good point that you made there, Joe.
Are there any steps in particular, Brett, that we can use, regardless of what the age of the child that said this to us is, about how we can work out, as you say, and suggest what's really behind the scenes of that lashing out statement? How do we actually work out what's really going on?
Well, we have to dig a little bit deeper. We talk about digging for gold and being students of your children, as well as your spouse and those in close proximity to you. You have to be a student of them and to understand what makes them tick. So there obviously is something going on in their world for them to articulate such a hurtful statement. So, instead of being in conflict and in tension and in anger and frustration, remove yourselves and then come back to talk and have a dialogue. Hey, help me understand what's going on in your world, and whether it's a 4-year-old or whether it's a 14-year-old or even older, there's obviously something going on. You don't really mean that. Tell me what's going on in your world. And then you have to dig for that. And maybe they may not be able to communicate that. There may be some other co-stressors at school. There may be something that's going on in their friendships and relationships. There may be just sort of like annoyed that you didn't give them the Mars bar that they wanted for breakfast. Whatever it is, there can be a whole variety of different reasons why, but they tend to know how to push their buttons. And so we don't give them the satisfaction of reacting, but we learn to respond, watching our volume, watching our tone, watching what we say and how we say it. So when we communicate to them, we're role modeling, as I said before, but we're also teaching them, hey, and acknowledging and validating that they are frustrated, they are angry, but there are healthier ways to doing it.
Now, Brett, I have 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. 2 girls are full-on drama queens, and they are all teenagers and some adults. I have heard I hate you a few times. And my response is usually, oh, really? I absolutely adore you and love you. And they are so gobsmacked by my response that it diffuses the situation. But my question is, I feel a little bit desensitized to it. How do you balance having an appropriate response, but not getting too blasé or desensitized? Where's the self-care level as a parent?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, hopefully you're not too desensitized to it. You said in your opening remarks that words do hurt and they do have an effect, but we need to make sure we do look after ourselves and protect ourselves and care for ourselves to be a better role, whatever we are, when we care for ourselves. But we still have to address, we do not tolerate disrespect, disobedience, when they're not helpful and they're not contributing to the household, because that's not life. Life is about teamwork. It's collaboration. It's working in cooperation. And so when we have words that really cut to the chase, it's not the vibe that we want to have in our household. It's not the haven that we want to create. So we have to address those things, because we need to nip those things in the bud and saying, hey, those words really do hurt me. Even though you might say, well, it's water off a duck's back and it doesn't really affect me. They do. And so we need to actually address it, because if we don't teach them that those words do hurt, they'll then go and do it to their future employers. They might do it to their teachers. They may do it to their future spouse, because you haven't reacted in a way or responded in teaching them the more appropriate way. So we need to address it, even though you might say, well, here we go again. And I do love you, but you need to validate their experience, and there is a healthier way.
Yeah. We had a similar kind of an experience at my place on the weekend. My eldest, who's 10, lashed out in a way, and he was just saying, look, I just hate living in this house. Like, I just can't wait until I'm old enough to be out on my own. And I was just like, whoa. Okay, let's just put a pause on that right there. Let's time out. Let's have a chat. And, through having the conversation about what the top level surface of what he was communicating, he was just frustrated with the way that some of his siblings were acting. And that was literally why that statement came to the surface.
Yeah. And because you dug a little deeper and you found out, then you can address it and say, well, obviously we might need to have a family meeting. There's some things going on that are undergirding the reason why he's lashed out like this. So it's actually saying, hey, things aren't going well at the moment in the Want household, or any household for that matter. Why don't we talk it through? Why don't we actually discuss it? So everyone feels heard, everyone feels valued, everyone hears from another person's point of view, because even though we might be dismissive and say, oh, it doesn't really matter, for that person, it does. And when you're 10, these things are big, they're huge, and they can be overwhelming. And therefore we need to talk to him and understand it through his eyes, not to be dismissive, but actually understand and comprehend from the age and stage and the maturity of a child that these things are really big. You stop them from building their blocks. You stop them from watching their TV show. They will lash out because they didn't get what they wanted. So we need to treat them like adults and show them respect and say, hey, in about 5 minutes time, we need to pack up the blocks. Or in 5 minutes time, we need to turn the TV off. So you're giving them a pre-warning, not just suddenly taking it away, because we wouldn't like it as adults. We shouldn't think that our kids would like it. Just because we're the adults and we're the bosses doesn't mean we should do that. So we treat one another with respect, siblings and adults and children.
It's great. It sounds to me that these reactions, these words are symptoms of much deeper roots and things that are going on, and taking the time to understand them. And also it sounds like teaching them better ways to respond. And isn't that something that we're all doing even as adults? I'm wondering if you don't have children, but you do have people in your world that, share that they don't like you, or that they hate you, or that they're disapproving of you, how do you respond in general?
Yeah,
outside of having children, just as an adult to adult, in a work situation, church situation, life situation. Yeah,
that's true. And sometimes we have to still understand where they're coming from. We used to teach our children that, just because one of their peers lashed out at them, we never understand what's going on in their world. So there's the same thing with adults. Why are they lashing out? Why are they defending themselves? Why are they accusing you falsely? And sometimes it might be simply, how are things really going in your world? Now, it might be they're saying it's none of your business. And even though you might do all the things that are positive, those things that are trying to have an open dialogue and trying to share care and compassion, if they continue to treat you poorly, we would call that toxic. And it may be that you need to remove yourself for your own mental health and well-being. And that's not easy, especially when it comes to family and sometimes in a work environment, but you don't have to place yourself in the firing line if it continues to be bombarding you and it is detrimental to your own mental health. So there are times when you reach out, but there are times to be self-preserving.
Brett, we've really appreciated this conversation on the show today. So much more that we could have touched on, but we'll leave it there. We appreciate you coming on. Brett Rome from Focus on the Family. We'll check in next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
89.9 The Light, Positive Radio.